All
Yeah.
right, cool. So welcome everyone. It is almost September and the summer ended quickly and preparation came along quickly, and so that's where we are right now in the school year. We've got kids in the building at the middle school. They're now on day three. And that's following up on about 2 weeks of staff preparation, which went really strongly, headed by Ariel, our middle school principal. At the high school, they're a week behind. They started a week later. They'll end the year a week later. And similarly, some strong showings over the first week with a relatively newish leadership team at the school. And so promising stuff there. Kids at the high school come in on Tuesday and Wednesday, first full day on Thursday this week. So things are happening quickly, and we're excited. With that, uh, mission moment tonight is just some lovely photos. So Monday morning, we welcomed in our new sixth graders at the middle school, and so this is arrival. This is 7:30 sharp. So a number of kids and families, smiling faces, some nerves here and there. First day of school, first day of middle school, which is a big deal. A couple of stories here that I think are a lot of fun. So first on the left. Ali Olivier's been with the school for I think 8 or 9 years now. I want to say this might be year nine.
Nine.
And her niece, who she's very close with, is coming to our middle school in sixth grade. And so she's excited. Her niece is excited. And so nice to have things in the family at the middle school. The middle photograph, it's Miss Ramos. Miss Ramos goes way back to our founding year. Her daughter Kimberly graduated in 2020, graduated last year from SUNY New Paltz, is now back in the city working away. Her middle child Kenny is now at SUNY Fredonia. I think he's in his third year now. Uh, the night before Sunday night, she dropped him off at campus and then was here bright and early at 7:30 in the morning on Monday, dropping off her youngest, who's now in our sixth grade. So she's had three kids come to our school. We are super appreciative and honored to serve her and family. And then on the right, new family to our school. Family dropped off their oldest at St. Bonnie's the night before. So drove out, dropped off their oldest, and then back in the mix on Monday morning. Smiling faces, ready to meet staff, meet leaders. Just a good vibe. And so I love this. I love the family aspect of this, and getting to know people and having them get to know us and really trust us so that we're able to do our best work on their behalf. So, some shining mission moments on Monday morning that will continue throughout the week and next week with our high school kids. So, agenda today, here we are, late August going into September. Looks like this. You all saw it in my note on Monday morning. Let me have Ram enter in. And so we're going to do something a bit different today. We're not going to spend time at the front end on current headlines, except for maybe one set of headlines. Instead, we're going to move right into committee reports and have a lot of the headlines be um, integrated within those report outs and what went on during our very productive committee meetings last week. We'll then jump into approvals and end the meetings as we do. With public comment, a look ahead, and a brief executive session. So that's the run of show today. And so with that, we'll jump into one headline and then go right into committee reports for this month. And the headline is just this. I just want to honor the work that we've been doing. I know that folks working in education on this call know exactly kind of what happened in August, and then folks who have been on the board for a while know that too, but I think it's still worth reiterating. And so back in July, a lot of these things were still ongoing with regard to the work and what were in our heads as leaders and thinking about a strong start to school. We're now 3 or 4 weeks into school, and so a lot of these things are now happening. And so I just would name them. Recruitment work, profile work at the school, getting our name out there so people know the good work we're doing is on our minds in August going into September. We're doing a lot of like data prep work right now, setting up things for screener exams and assessments in the first month of school, so we know exactly where kids are and where we can get involved in supporting them in a very detailed fashion. We're doing some work with onboarding people to their roles and responsibilities and goals formally for the year. As I said, right now we're prepping adults at the high school, and so lots of good sessions going on there that I think allow for a full team being normed and clear on what we're trying to do in the first month going into the year to be as successful as we can be at the high school and the middle school. Um, We've got right now finalizing course programming. Some of that has to do with maybe students who were enrolling this month, and we have had some action there with students enrolling in August. There's some updates to various handbooks that are happening in preparation for back to school night in September, those sorts of things. And so it's a busy time with regard to prep and getting a whole lot in the first few weeks, and then looking to over communicate and reinforce things in the first month for a strong start. So I just want to honor some of those things that are happening with people on this call and beyond. And so with that, let's jump into the first committee report out, which would be student learning. Had a very productive and solid meeting last week with Misha and Juliana. And so here's the agenda. What's in green is what we'll spend more time with tonight. We did a rather deep dive with regard to data for middle school results and high school results, both Regents and AP exams. So we're going to do something slightly modified at the recommendation of the committee going into the full board meeting tonight. Melissa's going to take the lead there. I'm then going to end things off and just describing an approval item for tonight, which is our annual goals and priorities for the year with targets, something that we approve around this time of year each year. So with that, Melissa, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, kick us off. Middle school state exam results.
Okay. Excited to report our middle school state exam results for this year. At a high level, the results this year are our strongest in Unity history. We outperformed our districts of comparison in math, ELA, and likely science. We don't have every detail for that yet. But based on comparable scores year over year, we feel good about that. This is true of both our general population and students with IEPs. So looking at math, we've had several strong years, 58% proficiency this year, which is above district and both 13 and 16, 13 with 52% proficiency, and 16 with 53% proficiency. The only folks we didn't beat is ourselves last year. We saw a little bit of drop off, 62% proficiency last year to our 58%. So still exceeding our goals for the year in comparison to our districts. But we did notice that we set a hard act to follow. ELA, we saw 61% of students proficient
All
versus
right.
49% the year before. Yeah, we're really excited about that. And that compares, now this is, we saw citywide growth this year on that exam. But still just saw 43% proficiency in District 13 and 49 in 16. So that 61 is well above district and well above our performance in the past. We're really excited about that. And science, we really only have ourselves to compare to because district data is not available. But last year we saw 51% proficiency, which was huge growth. And this year we grew again to be at 60%. When we look at that final number, these are eighth graders, and it doesn't wrap in the students who take Regents exams. So we'll see where we ended up compared to district. And this year we have some students taking a Regents exam, which may actually be more supportive when we compare data. So still growth there, feeling good about that. And we think early returns suggest that science will still be good too. And then when we look at comparisons with students with disabilities, we won't dive into that today. We're seeing similar spreads. We did see some fall off in math, students with disabilities, still beating district, but below where we were last year. So I'll get to that. That'll be an area of focus.
And
But
on the flip side,
we
some gains in ELA with our students with IEPs,
oh
correct?
yeah, absolutely. If you look at we can look in a minute if we need to at our sixth grade, for example, oh, more than doubled. So huge gains there. We have some reasons we think that we're having a strong year and that we've seen growth. One is curriculum. We launched the fish tank curriculum, which has really clicked with our team. It is a great curriculum and a nice fit for Unity. We had some strong hires in that team as well. We maintain style our science curriculum in math, in Eureka Math Squared. with some returning teammates. So that allowed us to really just see growth or maintain in those subject areas. Tons of responsiveness to data. That team is now habitually looking at our goals tracker. We've talked about that a lot, where we're looking at smaller quiz data in a rapid cycle and looking at student growth across time. It's used in coaching really naturally at this point, and we think that that really supports and across the whole school, it's normed. That's, I think, a difference from our high school. So has really supported us in being really data driven and taking things between our IAs and our end of year exams. And we had some consistent staffing with a seasoned core of lead teachers and learning specialists, but talking through it, I'd also add that we had just a couple strong hires in ELA. So I think, which we've largely maintained for this year. We did limited rehiring there. But last year's ELA hires had strong mindsets for the most part, and really great commitment to kids. That doesn't mean we don't have places to grow. There's plenty to grow from 58, 61, and 60%. So some things we're doing, we're focusing on that eighth grade set of students. When we look at that data, that sixth grade, when they were sixth graders last year, they were our outlier low performers. That continues to be true. They underperformed both the last year's sixth grade and last year's eighth grade. We know that they have the most need of support. So we're really focusing on that group with coaching and data cycles, a focus on students with disabilities. In our math classrooms, we really freed up our director of support services to be in more of a coaching and leading and feedback giving role this year. So she'll be working on some of those skills across the team with like a really balcony view on that. And we've improved our tutoring this year. We're developing our team a little bit more. We've been a little bit more intentional. We've been clearer with our look forwards and our lines for that time. We think that has contributed to the strength that we've seen over the last 3 years. And we are doubling down on that this year.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. Misha, Juliana, would you add anything based on the deeper dive we did on Thursday?
I think we had a conversation related to like belonging, consistency, cohesion, and those are three themes that ring really true in the middle school in terms of the momentum and success that we're seeing. So there are ways to continue to push that work forward for this year.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. So, I mean, you get a strong core of lead teachers. You offer consistent coaching. You make some upgrades to curriculum. You look at data frequently, and good things are going to happen. And so, I think that was the recipe for this year. And so, we want to continue to break ground in this, carry some of these best practice over to our high school, which we'll talk about in a moment. I just say this. I think I want to highlight the ELA team in looking at some of the historical trend data coming out of COVID. Some of the data was pretty stark back in 2021, 22. And if we were to chart this out and offer something today to you all, you'd see some pretty remarkable, consistent levels of progress from one year to the next with regard to the percentage of kids who were on grade level after a year of working with us. And so very proud of that and proud of the team. Their hard work is definitely paying off in terms of what kids are carrying with them skill-wise. And so I guess team members here, Juliana, welcome today. Jim, this is the first time you're seeing this. Be proud of the work I think that the board kind of brings forward to the school. Lenny, welcome and celebrate this. And I believe Ram and Sal are on too. So congratulations to us all. It's good stuff. So, Melissa, shall we dive into anything specific or should we move over to high school data now?
Josh, if you want to go to slide 10 for a little bit, I think that adds some of the texture to what I was saying about the different, that's 13,
Sorry. Yep.
the different grade level spread here. So this is our proficiency levels in ELA by grade level overall. I talked about how our now eighth graders, rising seventh graders, still demonstrate the greatest need. That while that is true, they had 50 percentage points growth year over year. So very proud of them there. But they do have the most number of students who are still in that bucket of ones who need the most supports. And then just a huge shout out to our sixth grade team. That team the year prior had a score of I believe 32% proficiency. So that 69% is really a win. We're excited about that.
Cool. Thank you for
All
that,
right.
Melissa. I'm going to move us over to what would be, I'm skipping over some of the slides that
Yep.
we reviewed on Thursday, just in case we wanted to look at them here. I'm going to move on to slide 23, which is a
Yep.
summary of our region's results.
Yeah, and I think we've talked a little bit about this already. We had some early
Hmm.
returns and shared this in the summer, so I'll be brief here. And we know that our high school is an area of focus. Overall, June Regents and spring AP exams represent a step backward, with Regents being more solidly backward and AP exams being a little bit more of a mixed bag in a variety of ways. So we did see one area where proficiency levels increased, and that was an area we had a cap. That was an area, my biggest area of focus at the high school last year, and that's our biology exam. This is the artist formerly known as living environment. We had seen multiple years of 20 and 21 and 22% proficiency in that course. So we made some course corrections there. And then we did see 61% proficiency between June and August. It was 60 in August. We had a small number of kids retake in, I'm sorry, 60 in June, a small number of kids retake in August, and that ticked up 1%. And that's compared to 23% for living environment last year. But we did see proficiency level decreases in Algebra 1, 19%. That's for June and August. It was only 10% in June versus 22% last year, which was still our organizational low. ELA, 43% between June and August, with 40% in June and 58%. We're going to talk about why in just a moment. And then global history too, 54% in June and August, 49% in June versus 58% last year. So we saw slides across all of those. I'm going to do the AP data along with this because I think some of the root causes and the responses are aligned. As an open access AP school, we still saw pretty good participation last year at 42%, but it's down from 60% the year prior, and an organizational goal of never going below 50. So last year we just didn't see the level of enthusiasm and programming that meets our goal and our model, even though it's outlier high for most schools across the country. 17 students earned college credit by scoring a 3 or above, and that's compared to 35 last year and 18 2 years ago. That may be flipped actually. 50% of students got a 2 versus 87, which means that more students, 54%, scored ones. And that's really what we're looking not to see, that the College Board says, like, we don't know if this child is prepared for college. Whereas a 2, they're like, this child is likely prepared for college. And a 3 is, give this kid some credit. They already know it. Proficiency levels did increase in some courses, some more dramatically than others. AP Language and Literature taught by one person, now Department Chair Jacob Lazar, 14% from 8% the year prior. AP Literature, 22% from 13% the year prior. And those courses did not have huge drop-offs in numbers. AP Environmental Science was up at 50%. However, only 2 students took that course and they took it online. It was 0% the year before when it was an actual course delivered from a teacher. AP Pre-Calculus ticked up a little bit, 1%. In AP US ticked up 2%. We did see proficiency levels decrease in some unsurprising courses like AP Studio Art and Design, where we had forecasted higher, 10% down from 25%. We think that has to do with, like, students were creating art on paper but struggled with the submission portions, and it was the teacher's first go. We saw AP Government down 12% from 55%, AP World 3 from 20. And then we did have 3 courses with no scores of 3 above: AP Calc, AP Computer Science Principles, and AP Biology. Any questions just on the numbers, not the reasons?
Let's jump into the why.
Yeah. Let's jump into the why. So I think our scores can be attributed here. Decreased staffing, attention, and prioritization at coaching at UPHS, resulting in overall instructional capacities that were lowered, and along with inconsistent behavior expectations across classrooms. Those together, we really think that the secret sauce, the difference between the two schools, is the devotion to instructional development that took a bit of a backseat at the high school last year. We also had some inconsistent staffing across the year and year over year at our high school. So all of those AP courses where scores fell had new teachers in the course. And only one had a new teacher and had an uptick, and it was an uptick of 1%, but I don't think any actual children. Numerically different. So that consistency, Misha, you were talking about like the culture, the buy-in, and the commitment, and the like safe, seen, supported is one of our priorities this year. That among staff, not having that continuity, I think, is a big difference when we compare to the year before, where we had a prodigal instructor come back and get like a winning 55% pass rate after coming back and getting really expert at the course. Our ninth graders, another thing that's a difference in numbers is a bad bet on my end. It's ninth graders, we were tracking their data throughout the year, and they seem to be well outpacing their sophomore counterparts. So we took a bet that if they took that exam, not only would we be in better shape overall, but then those kids could accelerate to a sort of a more exciting pathway throughout high school. And that bet did not pay off. The numbers did not actually lean that way. There's a couple reasons that we think that could be true. There were some ninth grade culture incidents around the exam time. They were using slightly different exams that aligned to the text that they were using. And we should have used the same exam throughout the year. I, of course, corrected that for this year. We won't repeat that this year in the same way. We will invite students who are well on track to take that exam so that they can then accelerate to different coursework throughout their time, the same way you might in a math trajectory. So these are our focus areas to build or maintain.
Michelle, Melissa, before we move on to that, maybe just open it up. Are there any questions on the results and what we're attributing them to, or perhaps questions of the why on the whys that are worth digging into among those who are seeing this data for the first time?
Yeah, question for me. I guess, is there any like when you reflect on how well things seem to have gone in the middle school versus maybe like some of the areas that we could work on in the APs in high school, is there any like lesson or things that you can learn from of what worked in the middle school but isn't working here? Or is it like sort of like two isolated things that we really can't compare?
No, I think that there are two key levers to pull. One is a strong school culture. If we looked at all of our data across all metrics and not just our academic data, we'd see that our attendance is stronger at the middle school. Our suspension rate is far lower at the middle school. Like all of these lagging indicators that say our school culture needs to be strengthened at the high school that's taking students' focus off of some of these, the learning that is demonstrated on these exams. So that's one. And I know our principals would double click that. And then the second thing is teacher development, instructional coaching, and just like content expertise and supporting folks through that. We really took a backseat at the high school last year. We lost an AP. The principal piloted a model wherein department chairs were more like thought partners, which was a bet that didn't pay off as well. Whereas we kept consistent regular coaching at our middle school with instructional experts, like a science master science teacher leading our science department, a skilled ELA teacher leading our ELA department. So those are the two reasons I think are most likely. And those align to our strategy for this year as well. And I guess the third thing is was a little bit more consistency with teachers at the middle school. And I think we've seen, especially in AP courses, when you teach for a couple years, that's when you start getting results. oftentimes that first go at a course is learning alongside the kids.
Thanks for that, Ron.
Thanks.
And then yeah, Misha has our belonging, consistency, coherence. So I said a lot of those in there. So those three, right? And then so here's what we're gonna do this year. Like Ram said, are there things that are happening in the middle school that can be brought there? Yes. And we used to do them too. So we're bringing it back. We have increased investment in coaching. Our new principal like absolutely believes in this. So we have a devoted STEM and a humanities department chair, as well as an associate department chair in history and an athletics coach as well. So we've got folks who are going to be doing regular walkthroughs with teachers, going to be doing coaching meetings where we're digging into practice. They're going to be looking at data. They're looking at the curricular pieces on the daily to make sure that they are strong and well prepared.
And when Melissa says athletics coach, what she means here is that
Oh
we
yeah,
have a designated instructional coach for those teachers who are teaching health, PE, and dance. And so the theory of action here is if you've got consistency across those classes, in addition to all of the others, expectations are normed, things are predictable, kids feel safe, they feel like they're belonged, and things go smoothly. And so
yeah.
this is a representation of that.
The sports analogy that we use for the work of instructional coaching when applied to athletics, I guess, gets redundant and confusing.
Mhm.
So we also have a school-wide priority to strengthen our PBIS systems and supports. We're calling it Safe Seen Supported, and really digging in and practicing with team. And then we have some dedicated intervention time baked into our schedule. So not like, hey, would you stay after school and talk about global history for a little while with me? Like it is a long concerted time built into student schedule monthly. And then we're actively planning reteach structures for students who've missed these things, with a special focus on our class of 2026 who will need some supports. You know what? I want to add one more. We also have on that new coaching team, I left off Nick Kaiser, who is our director of support services, who's making sure to lean in to think about that group of kids, coaching learning specialists, and ensuring that our compliance is both literally perfect and authentic to what students need.
And so the goal there with that level of expertise in that specific area is some of the same results for our high school kids that we saw with the middle school students with IEPs this past year. So I think with that, I think what I'd also like to just underline here, and I don't expect you to really see this slide, but it represents something we brought to the full board in May, which was a summary of the way in which we saw not just bouncing back, but bouncing beyond with regard to our high school in the coming year. And so Melissa's brought up some of the staffing elements of what we're doing this year, which we feel are upgrades on this past year. Some of the ways in which we're developing people performance-wise through coaching, some of the academic supports we'll have in place, some of the things we're doing with regard to culture. And then there are a few other things we're doing with regard to time over the course of the day and how that's used during specific parts of the day in very intentional ways. The way in which we're even using our spacing in the building a little bit more intentionally than we did this past year. And a few other things. So I think this is all consistent. What we've been talking about over the past few months is continuing to now be implemented and prepared for moving into the year at the high school. So feel confident about this. Okay, before we move into the next element, I know this is a bit of a share out with regard to this committee, but this committee is an important one. So we're going to spend some time with student learning. That's the results for 24, 25, moving into 25, 26. Let's talk a bit about 25, 26. And so each year we develop a strategic plan, which is meant to build on our successes and correct some of the shortfalls we have with regard to what we want to bring to our students experientially. And so typically the big broad levers don't change. It's who we are as a school. So we rely on our key design elements and then look within those elements to build out strategies that best align with the goals we want to achieve in the coming year. So that's here. These goals or priorities also align with SED's performance framework for excellent schools. And so each year I want to underline that and say, look, this is aligned to our strategic plan that we've been discussing over the past few months. It's aligned to SED's benchmarks, and it's aligned to what we want to improve on over the course of the year and double down on over the course of the year. So three specific areas, echoing what Melissa had to say: rigorous and relevant learning, 612; a vibrant school culture and pride among all students and staff; and then finally looking to expand our enrichment offerings and community engagement to build a really, really strong community-based school. So those are the three specific strategy or priorities we're looking at. And then within this plan, I should say, I did send this one pager to everyone in my email on Monday. So you can open that up if you want to look at the one pager specifically. I'm going to talk you through the elements of that now. Again, this is something we approve each year, so I just want people to be familiar with it, and know that it's something similar in framework to what we used last year, but the strategies and some of the metrics have been updated. So with regard to that first priority of rigorous and relevant learning, we're thinking about the how. We've echoed the how a number of times tonight and how we get there. And a lot of that's through coaching, using data and interventions in smart ways. So that's the how. With regard to how we over time know it's working, there are some interim steps we take with frequency, maybe weekly, maybe monthly, maybe biannually. But some of those things include formative quizzes, some things we borrowed from things that Juliana's brought to our school over the past couple of years to assess how things are going frequently within classes according to standards taught. In addition to that, just the way in which we're on a monthly basis, which is reported out to the full board, looking at important data that are inputs and outputs. That includes things like student attendance, grades, coaching benchmarks as a school. So making sure that we're delivering on our plan by looking at that data with frequency. And finally, just the way in which we're managing and getting the most out of team with regard to their performance and growth. And so we've got a process for that over the year and want to make that as helpful and robust as possible, in frequent communication about how things are going and how to look to get a bit better each day. So that's the how, and then we've got some targets here, a lot of usual suspects, some data we talked about today. So we're successful if we are achieving our goals with regard to proficiency rates in some of those key subject areas at the middle school, looking to boost the region scores that we presented out today in some significant ways. AP exams follow in that same fashion. Graduation rate, we're going to talk about that in a moment, but that's always here. And then a few other areas, but that's how we'll measure success over the course of the year with this first and primary priority. Does anyone have any questions, ideas, insights based on what I've conveyed thus far? Cool. So that's strategy one. Strategy two relates to a vibrant school culture and pride. I'm sorry, did someone have something they wanted to add? Cool. So with that same recipe, the how represents us being really clear and steadfast in a consistent implementation of like our universal expectations at the school. So proactively communicating that out, having kids practice it, staff practicing the implementation of it, and then over time looking at data to make sure that like positive reinforcement is happening in the ways that it should. We're following up with misbehaviors in appropriate ways. Kids are learning from them. Those sorts of things happening regularly across the school. We really feel like we made some gains in that area this year at the middle school. Want to see it expand to the high school this year. In addition to that, some other hows relate to our tier two PBIS interventions. Tier two just means they're a bit more serious. So maybe it's a conflict outside the building, maybe it's a disagreement verbally, that kind of thing. But the ways in which we're teaching into it in a systematic way and over time, so the kids are authentically learning from the misstep and stronger in the long term, and our school is then stronger in the long term. In the same fashion as looking at academics routinely, we'll look at student culture data routinely in the same way. And so we have a PBIS team, and every week they get together to look at this data informally, and the team formally gets together on a monthly basis to look at how things are going. This data is then shared out with you all at the board level on a monthly basis as well. And targets, we've got a rubric for school culture. And so using that rubric regularly to assess kind of how things are going and whether we're making improvements over the course of the year is what we're aiming for. And so really that's the focus and the how of student culture at the school in the coming year. If there are no questions, I'll move us forward to just providing the summary and orientation to strategy or priority 3, which is expanding enrichment and community engagement. The how of that is we've got
Sure.
a
Hey,
new,
Josh,
oh, sorry, Tim,
can
yeah.
you just, what specifically do you use to measure culture? Like, what are the metrics when that team gets together on a
Yeah.
weekly basis or whatever?
Uh, on a positive end, we've got core values at the school, integrity being one. And so student demonstrates integrity in class, teacher then awards that student a core value point for demonstrating integrity. That
How
quality
do
is
you do that?
first, and then
How do
it's
they
tracked.
demonstrate integrity?
Um, raise a hand and they say, hey, I'm sorry, I still don't understand this concept. Can you provide an example? And that is an example of, a kid being honest. And sometimes that's hard and saying, hey, I'm not sure how to do this. And so that'd be one clear example of how a student might do that.
Okay.
On the constructive side of things, referrals. So looking at referrals and maybe a removal from class, or maybe there was a conflict in class, and there's a write-up within our sort of systems internally, and that's tracked. And so being able to sort of tally that over the course of weeks by grade, by section, et cetera, is something that we can do as a school. We look at suspension data here at the board level more broadly, but I think there are a number of other indicators that are equally important that drive decisions and interventions at the school. Does that make sense, Jim?
Yeah, I get sort of the disciplinary side of it. I just don't get the culture, and maybe and I guess that's kind of incorporated culture, but the culture, the other parts of it, I just don't know how you measure it.
Mhm.
And you know,
Yeah, like I can see Jim's question around like, is there a student experience survey that we use, et cetera?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to add that we do give those surveys, I think it's going to be 3 times this year, Josh.
We're going to do it twice,
You've
once
done
in
2
the
in the
fall
past,
and
twice.
spring. And yeah, thank you for that input here. And so looking at the one example of how we might measure culture and kids feeling especially excited about being in school every day is their uh, net promoter index, and just sort of putting out there, hey, I would definitely refer my friend to come to this school. And looking at that both in the fall and in the spring. Within the survey, there are perhaps some reasons why. And so us as a team then looking at that data in the fall, creating some action plans on how we address the whys there, and then looking to do so and hopefully seeing gains made during the spring administration would be another way.
And then,
that to me is a good one because it's an actual action point. If you ask a kid whether they feel good on a day and that's your metric, you're kind of screwed.
yeah.
Everybody has a bad day and whatever.
Yeah.
But if you are asking them, would you take this specific action of referring somebody in? Okay, I get that. That works for me.
Mhm.
The soft stuff, I think kids just are, I was a kid where they bounce around every day, every hour. They feel differently, and it's just hard to gauge, you know,
Yeah,
these sorts of things.
definitely harder than measuring attendance rates or proficiency rates in seventh grade math, for example.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And I would say one of the nice things about the experience surveys is, one, it's all kids. So the kid having a bad day can be outweighed by the kid who, like,
Mhm.
just won a championship last night and is on cloud nine. And it's relative to other kids. We get those, how we're doing relative to other schools that are similar to ours, with kids that are similar to ours. So we can see how that experience is for
Okay,
our
so this
kiddos and
is
plan from
all
that.
this is all rolled up and aggregated. I'm not quite familiar with the PBS thing, but okay, so okay, got it. Understood.
Yeah. And then of course we're looking across all those things. If like our surveys are great and kids are saying nice things, but our suspension numbers are through the roof and we've got 1 million referrals every day and no kids in school, then
Mhm.
that would be one data point that's at odds with the other ones. But we're looking at these more holistically.
Okay.
And so with priority three, Jim, I'm thinking about some of the conversations we've had as of late about kind of like raising the profile of school and finding clear ways based on input of students and families about what would make the high school experience especially enticing to them versus other options they have going into high school. And so a lot of it's through our offerings. I mean, that's what gets people excited. Oh, you've got this at your school. I want to do this. I want to try it. And so us being intentional this year and building out some of the programming we have to attract as many kids as we can, given their interests. So you'll see some new course offerings this year. Melissa could talk you to death with regard to those. I could talk you to death with regard to some expanded extracurricular programming we're offering at the school. Um, we'd like to include some partnerships locally for internship offerings, field trips in Bed-Stuy, that kind of thing. And so our middle school principal is especially attuned to the community in Bed-Stuy. That's where she grew up. And so she wants to leverage her network more so to create more experiences for kids beyond the classroom. So things like that happening. There are ways in which we measure that to know if it's working. Are we effectively expanding? And a lot of that has to do with enrollment and recruitment. A lot of it has to do with kids and their sentiments about being excited and engaged in school. And then general participation in athletics and clubs after school also gives us some sense of like, is this good? Is it working? Is it having the impact we want? And so um, those are the general big buckets and the playbooks for each. If we deliver on these three things this year, I think we're doing exceptionally well in moving closer to fully realizing our mission as a school and a vibrant one. So um, that's the summary. Misha asked a question on Thursday during our SLC meeting of like, hey, how do you kind of bring this to staff and have them get excited about this? And so I'll spend 30 seconds kind of conveying that now. And that's, we do have something called their Unity Playbooks by campus. And the playbooks are meant to offer clarity to stakeholders, mainly staff of our school, about what we're about, why we exist, how we behave in terms of how we do the work together, what our purpose is as a school, our strategies in a given year, and then our current priorities. The current priorities change each and every year depending on what we're trying to achieve. And so I was able to bring this to our leadership teams at both sites over the past 2 weeks. And then our principals brought it to the full team in a fashion that was better than my presentation 2 weeks ago and last week. So we bring this to team. You'll see it hanging in our building, and it's meant to be over communicated and reinforced. So there's a sense of a shared commitment and understanding of who we are as a school. So I think with that, I've got two more updates on what is this really productive report out of student learning and engaging one. So thanks everyone so far for your thoughtful questions and insights. So a couple of things just to round things out. So staffing quickly, we talked about this with SLC. We've covered all of the three gaps that we had in July with some promising folks. The one new vacancy we have is a number of you know Brandon Lopez, who's been with the school for 11 years. He's going to be moving to DC. He's our director of operations at the high school. And so he's been a pillar at the school, been instrumental in the facility itself, and knows it more than anyone else in the world. And so he's going to be missed. We do have a flurry of interviews happening this week. I think we had 3 or 4 today. We've got one tomorrow. So we've got some promising candidates to fill his shoes, but that is one vacancy we're filling now. In the meantime, Chris, you're appreciated for, in your role, stepping in and making sure this transition is smooth. And with that, we're going to talk about enrollment in just a minute, but we are still working to be enrolled in line with our targets for the year and have some moves to make and some room to make progress. And so in the meantime, there isn't any hiring going on with the exception of this TO position. And that I think is suitable given where we are right now. So I'll say that. With that, With graduation, just an update here. This is an important one. State scores are really important with regard to how we're assessed at the state level. Graduation is another. About a half hour ago, there was a 5 minute snippet on graduation rates and recovery to graduation on the radio. And so it's appropriate to talk about that tonight. Melissa, you want to take this?
Yeah. So I've been reporting on this regularly. I think I told you that my guess was a 94% graduation rate, and I was pretty spot on for June, but we also had the summer. So revised unofficial 4-year graduation rate. Chris is submitting everything this week. We're waiting for principal's verification. It's 97%. So 60 out of 62 children. One child has not attended school since her sophomore year, and the other child stopped out mid-year after a few major incidents coupled with some predator accrual issues. This rate is higher than my initial forecast, and that's because a couple of things. We did have 3 August graduates who needed a little more time. They got a ton of support from AP Olivier this summer, who helped us get there. And in working with them, daily check-ins, and really doing the emotional piece of what can be really hard when not graduating alongside your classmates. We also have one student, she is an L. She was forecasted not to graduate because she had quite a number of regions she had to recover. It seemed like a very daunting task, but we created a schedule wherein she was getting daily supports from multiple teachers, and she had a very strong showing on her 3 regions examinations. Thanks, Chris. L is English language learner in EduSpeak. And she had a very, very strong June showing and graduated, got to walk across the stage with her classmates.
And so, I think we've talked about the ways in which we want to progress and improve in preparing kids to succeed in college and career. I think as a small school with a lot of adults and caring adults and resources with regard to counseling, we've always been strong in this area because we've got a number of kids that that are going through it with regard to just general life challenges, et cetera. And I think we've got the resources in play to support them. And so we do a good job of that. And so this, I think, reflects just that aspect of our school. So that is student learning. Thank you, everyone. That was valuable. We're going to now move into the next committee share out today, which is audit and finance, which happened on Friday. Sal and Jim were part of that meeting. And so I think some things we discussed, we talked about year-end results, which are very much in line with our budget. And so that feels good. Jim, Sal, if there's something you want to report out, or Kristen beyond that, I think for the purposes of this meeting, we'll go kind of broad. We are looking or looked at July financials, and we looked at that with an eye on enrollment. We're going to talk about enrollment soon, but just know that right now we're looking at ways in which we may have to make changes program-wise if we don't have the enrollment that we're seeking in the coming months. We did some of that last year and feel equipped to make those moves if we have to. Right now, the focus is on welcoming in kids, welcoming in families, and getting the word out. We'll talk about a couple of approval items momentarily, including trailers at the high school and agreements with our alumni success counselors. And we're going to move into a quick update on recruitment now. And so let's do that. You saw this slide in July, so this is meant to be an update on last month's totals. And so from a 612 perspective, last month we were predicting 440 to 450. That's around the range we were in. Our budget enrollment is 475, so there is a significant gap there. We have made gains. We're closer to 450 to 460, somewhere in the middle, I think, as of today. And so I want to salute the folks who are doing that work heavily on the ground each and every day. And we're looking to continue to have students enroll in the school so we're as close to 475 or over as possible as soon as we can get there. We've talked about some of the actions we're taking. Chris is going to talk about digital media in a moment and some of the moves we're making there, which has been helpful. And so Yeah, let's do that now. And Chris, I'm going to hand things over to you and provide an orientation of what this conveys. And Jim, thanks for offering this as something that we should do with the full board tonight.
Hey Josh, I think Chris just jumped off because it's 7.
Ah, okay. How about that? Okay. So I'll do my best here. And so I think what this data presents is just that we do have an agreement with a digital marketing firm who have been really fabulous to work with. They've worked with a number of other schools in the area and across the nation. And so they're, as a result of some of the work that they've done and in getting our word out, they've helped us in just presenting ourselves visually in short blurbs and blitzes on Facebook and social media. And there has been an uptick in looking at the historical data from last year to this year and the number of interested parties that have expressed more information or just gone out and applied to the school over the past 2 months since engaging with them. So we do see this being valuable to us. Um, I do not speak the same language here as our social media folks, but I'll do my best. And so there are a number of kind of quantitative ways in which we're looking at, okay, how much money are we spending versus what is the impact or the response to some of the ways in which we're getting the word out to teams. And we're looking at link clicks, we're looking at impressions, and other things across the board there. Um, and so I think this just conveys that there's some analytics involved in this, and it's a fairly kind of like complex way in which we're thinking about getting the word out and then measuring it and seeing its impact.
So,
Yeah,
you know,
that
where the
was,
rubber hits the
oh,
road is
so sorry.
conversions. Oh, sorry, but
I didn't know
where the
No,
rubber hits the road is your conversions. So, do we know how many actual students came in and registered via this? I mean, this is early days, but do we know that?
We do,
that's
we
my
are able to
same
track that.
question.
Yeah, we are able to track that right now, and so we do have a sense as to how a parent or a family learned about us. And so that's kept and archived, and so that is available, yes.
What's the number? How much did we spend for every new on marketing for every student that came in the door through that avenue?
Yeah, I think we'll have to get you that number tomorrow in terms of exact, like,
They'll have it. The
yeah.
marketing guys will have it. They'll be able to tell you. But
Okay.
you can track them straight through the process, and they click on the landing page, and then boom, they show up. They do an interview, and they sign up. They should be able to tell you your cost per conversion.
Mhm. So that's I think that's been valuable. I think the other thing that we've been doing, which has benefited us this year more so than last year, is we've been super aggressive with our communication with our existing families or incoming families to ensure that their enrollment is a guaranteed enrollment and that the students are attending school on the first day. And last year there were a few surprises. And so we're trying to minimize that and ensure that what we know now is as close to reality a week from now as possible. And that just positions us to make really good decisions and use our resources, which are scarce, wisely. So that's where things stand at this point in time. We'll continue to grind things out and do the good work and provide an update next month. Are there any questions or insights here? Cool. So I think with that, we move into the next element for tonight, which is just where things are with facilities. And I mentioned a bit of an update at the beginning of this call. So the gym renovation at the high school will be completed tomorrow, minus a couple of things. And so that renovation includes new lighting, which is supremely better, new ceiling, some acoustic improvements, equipment, including padding on the sides, some hoops, which will be provided. Later this month. New paint, some plumbing repairs. We want to do ribbon cutting event it'll probably be November. Misha and Sal, we talked about this in October during our call on Monday, but I think we got to push it out a bit further to make sure things are fully set up and beautiful for such an event. But more information there, but we're looking at an early November event and would love for all to come in, have a good time, get some shots up. We might do some half court raffle shots, all that fun stuff. So that will be happening. And so I want to say those are the headlines for the full board with regard to audit and finance tonight. We'll move things forward now and talk a bit about development. And so on that call with Misha and Sal on Monday of last week, we've got Misha providing a guest experience today in just a moment. So we're going to move into that. But what you have in green is what we'll bring to the board tonight. Just some headlines on things and what we've been doing in July and what that looks like moving into the year. Want to share out development goals for this coming year versus last year, and then talk about our calendar a little bit and what we're looking to do in the next 2 months in improving on what we did this past year. So just over the summer, team, we took stock of kind of where we had some successes and where we had some shortfalls, and looking at the data for development this past year. There were a few donations or grants that we spent some time with. We received one donation of $50,000, and we've got two grants that are outstanding that are significant if we are able to receive them, and we'll know this month about that. And then we made some updates with some of our promotional material. We've been going back and forth on strategic plan stuff for outside audiences and some goal setting. So that's what's been happening behind the scenes over the course of July with myself, Eric, the development committee, and a few others. Other things to report out. So this is what we're looking at in the coming year. And so I'm going to go right to here. So what's in green is what we actualized this past year across a couple of different avenues of fundraising. What's in orange is what we're aiming for this year. And so this past year, private foundation wise, we ended up bringing in $124,000 and then some. That was more than what we had targeted. So some success there with, I think, 3 grants brought in. We're looking to raise that somewhat with a $200,000 raise with private foundations this year. We feel good about the repeater aspect of the foundations we now have and in building relationships with those foundations. And we've got a couple of grants that we're now waiting for. If we collect one of those, we may meet our goal relatively soon. If not, we're going to continue to expand things out and introduce ourselves to other foundations. With that, this week, Eric has provided a short list of foundations we're looking to apply for funding with this year. And it is not unlikely that some of you on the board here may know folks who are on boards of those foundations. So expect an email in your inbox by Friday with a quick ask of who do you know and would you be willing to make an introduction if you do know someone. It may also sort of jog your brain with regard to other foundations, whether it's a family foundation, a bigger grant foundation, et cetera, that may be worthy of an introduction to get a conversation going. And so that's coming down the pipeline. The next area, public grants. We didn't have a lot of success this year. I think we had a goal, did not raise it. This year, we're changing things up and not going to be chasing that avenue as much as the others. So we'll devote our time to private foundations, insider donations, and private support. With regard to insider donations, those who have given before who are part of the program, we raised 58,000. We were aiming for 150,000. So we didn't meet that goal. We're revising that goal downward to 100 grand. And so the goal here is with insider donations in the coming year to maintain what we have now and raise an additional 40,000, which is reasonable. We can do this. So that is the insider donation goal for the year. And then with regard to supporter donations, all the folks we know who may not be intimately familiar with the school, but are fans of the school. We raised $103,000 this past year. We were seeking to raise 250. So we were a little naive with regard to what we thought we could do this year versus what we did. We've also updated our expectations there for the coming year and have lowered that to $150,000 in supporter donations, which I think is also very much in the cards if we're just a bit more aggressive with our referrals and getting the word out about the school to meet some more people. This past year, I want to say we had about 5 or 6 referrals, which is low. And so doubling that, tripling that is very much in the cards, given our capacities as a team and board this year. And if we do that, we'll have no trouble earning or raising an additional $50,000. So overall, the goal is 450 for the coming year. Sal, Misha, Ram, anything you'd add here?
That succinctly summarizes what we discussed. I think I don't think we're there yet, but my biggest piece in the conversation was just again this streamlined story that we're telling about Unity Prep. So I'll wait.
Cool. Cool, cool. So I'm going to move us forward now. Here's what this looks like in terms of the how. So we do have a development calendar that we've upgraded from last year to this year. The goal again is 450. We've got 3 different streams of revenue, private foundations, insiders, and supporters. And there are a number of things that we're doing each and every month that's just recurring, which are listed here. And then there's some things that we do specific to different months and different calendar aspects of the year, December being a busy month at year end, for example. And so for me, that looks like 2 to 3 personal donor calls or visits a month, and being visible and present for different events and getting the word out and being an ambassador. For Eric, the development director, it's about managing our grant calendar and performing and preparing grants. It's about appeals to prospective grant foundations and donors and donor communication. So he's doing that work. Among those of you on the board, it's about referrals. It's really just about making connections and thinking about ways in which we build resources for the school that benefit our students and some of our priorities in the coming year around rigor, culture, and expanding opportunities for kids enrichment wise. So for all of us, this is about cultivation. I think just getting the word out. So Misha's going to say more about like how we do that and how we tell our story powerfully in a moment as an introduction kind of session today. But I think that's going to be where we break the most ground and have the greatest success with regard to just getting strong in this. So I think with that, Misha, can I hand things over to you and should I let you share your screen? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Cool, cool. And thank you. Let's see here.
Um,
So, Ghost.
Now, I will say that Josh is being very kind. This is not an intro to storytelling in any way, but I do think in the spirit of belonging, consistency, and coherence, there are ways that we can come together as the board to think about what are the ways that we are telling a unified story about Unity Prep, our contributions, and then the ways that we see students flourishing as a result of the work that we're doing. So I'm going to add a Mentimeter poll to the chat. If you could pull that up, please, that would be great so that we can get some real-time feedback going. So the first thing I would like folks to do is think about words that come to mind when you think of Unity Prep, and that will actually populate this word cloud. So once you have access, you can get started.
Cool.
Here, academics. I'll give us about 2 minutes here.
I'm having a problem getting in.
For a moment, I thought I had to log in, and then I said, oh, I just have to enter the words in those 3 boxes.
All right. So far, I'm seeing words that align to, the function of Unity Prep as an academic institution. I think what's coming up also is what are ways that we can lean into really sticky messaging in terms of the ways that we connect with others. The words that are coming up as a bit bigger would show that more than one person provided that feedback, right? So more than one person said small, one person said mighty. Right, and I think these are really important in terms of the ways that, again, we frame our conversations with potential donors and the ideas that we want to come across, in terms of the impact and efficacy of the space. All right, here's the second thing I'd like us to focus on, and for this, I'm going to give us another 2 minutes. Jim, if you're not able to add it to the form, you could just put it in the chat. Words or phrases that we would like to see incorporated into the stories that we tell about Unity Prep this year. So I'll put the question in the chat.
Yep.
And then give us some time to brainstorm. So let's come back together at 7:18.
And Misha, should that prompt also be in the Mentimeter?
Yes, that's the second slide. In
Right
the
now I'm seeing,
Mentimeter
please
post.
wait. You've already responded to this question on my screen.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay, if we're not able to see it in the Mentimeter poll, let's actually just take some time to reflect on it, and then we can put our answers in the chat. That's fine.
I'm getting fired up.
All right, so I'm seeing some great responses in the chat now, and I wanted to also just open up the floor if folks want to expound on what they share. For example, I'm seeing things like putting students on a better trajectory, college matriculation. Melissa, you have obviously direct work that you're doing, right? So this idea around support, what are things that you know to be true about support and how it shows up as a part of the Unity experience?
I'm happy to start since that was the last thing you brought in. Our schools have a series of core values that I think are really important, and my favorite one is high expectations and high support. And I think being a small environment has allowed us to be, I think, leaders of the pack with that in so many ways, because we have an incredibly low teacher to student ratio, so that everybody knows everybody. Kids will tell you that everybody knows everybody. And we're able to provide incredibly targeted support plans. In my inbox now, I know is the verification of our graduates, which is confirmed for me that 97%. But looking at that, I see so many stories about students who receive just incredibly individualized attention. And were they to go to the very big high school that's just down the block from me, I'm not sure their trajectories would be the same, because we are a supportive place. So that's something I would highlight that is unique to our school.
I appreciate that. Sal or Jim, did you want to jump in and share thoughts?
I think is this, are we talking about how we want to present ourselves to potential the community and donors, etc.? I think then you really have to hone in on the results, and kind of to Melissa's points, how do you get the results? Start with the results. Here's what we're shooting for, and then how do you get there? And in my mind, the ability, like Melissa's talking about, to provide, being a small group that has a lot of flexibility in how you sort of structure your classrooms and how you teach, gives you opportunities to do things that other schools can't do in the neighborhood. And hopefully that translates to results. And hopefully, and the other thing that you're able to do, because you have such a small group you're working with, is you're able to push kids, and you're able to not encourage them and challenge them, push and sort of raise the floor for them, and then let them sort of jump from a higher floor, right? So I think that kind of messaging is true, number one, and it resonates with people. When you explain this is how we operate, we have incredibly high expectations. It's kind of no excuses among the educators or the kids. This is what we're driving for. Here we go, and here are the results that we can show you. I think that's kind of where we need to go with our messaging. The result, people donate based on the results. And then if you tell them the story of how you got those results, it happens to be a very, you know, a great story, that just drives it further.
Absolutely. Sal, were you jumping in?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Jim mentioned is a more practical version of kind of what I'm saying when I say students first, which is obviously without our students, we're nothing, and um, they come first, and so does their success. So the success of our students is primary, and how do you sort of measure success? That comes in the form of that more practical. These are the results, and so forth. But it's really putting the success of our students first and foremost amongst everything else, and that drives the rest of the whole ship ultimately.
And Josh, I heard you say that you're getting fired up. What's coming to mind for you as you're listening to us kind of chew on this idea?
I think two things very briefly. One would be just some of the themes that are common across this list and what people volunteered. So that makes me feel good about um, us sort of thinking about the same priorities in terms of what we're working for and making the school um, be what we aspire for it to be. And then I think I kind of foresaw this communication and this conversation happening, and it just fired me up to hear people talk about it. So,
Awesome. So my immediate desire here was to engage us in the conversation. Obviously, we'll have the Zoom notes to go back to, but my goal is for us to also generate some really consistent sticky language in the form of taglines, hashtags, working with the marketing firm, thinking about, again, that coherence in terms of presentation and how we all speak about our work with and for Unity Print. And then just having really concrete statements based on historical context, our intended audience, the purpose of our touch points or engagement, and the significance of the work that we're doing. So, of course, a lot of that relates to what is happening real time in the school, but it's also about building our own synergy as a board. So I appreciate your time.
thank you,
I
Michelle.
think, just to add one point, I think as you think about messaging and talking to marketing folks, you know, the results are absolutely where people's head go, that's where their head goes right out of the gate. I think one story that we need to work on is that there are a lot of schools out there that can show you good numbers, and there are a lot of ways to create good numbers without actually doing the hard work. You know, underperforming kids maybe don't, maybe they're sort of shoot out and they don't show up the next year, and so your numbers get better, right? I don't know how we can tell that story, but we just don't play that game. We do the work, and so I think, I think the results, again, the results are critical, but we have a good story around the results. We don't shape our community of students to get to an outcome, a
We're
result
not cherry
outcome.
picking.
We deal with what we've got. Yeah. Yeah. I think that if there's a way to craft a story around that, I think that would be good.
Jim, what
To
comes to mind
piggyback
for
on
me?
to
Oh,
piggyback on Jim's point, to to remix his story a little bit, it would be nice if we put an emphasis or maybe enhance the emphasis on what makes us a differentiator versus peer institutions, right? Because at some point, with the growth of so many schools that are going to come in to different communities, it's going to be paramount for us to show why we're different. And while I 1,000% agree that the metrics are key, but certain things like family oriented, community, inclusion, so that you are letting parents and caregivers and guardians know that if you send your child to our schools, you're going to come out with a well rounded individual in a way that's going to make them a contribution or contributor to society.
Yeah.
yeah. To piggyback off of both of those points, I think in the right order too. Where I've found, Jim, the most success in having people get at the second part of what you've said, like the sort of understanding of like the heart of the school beyond results or in addition to results, is like having them in, like just having them experience a couple of hours in the building and seeing kids and adults and leaders interact in spaces. I'm thinking about the digital marketing firm that came in. They came and saw roundtables in June, and like they're trying to like build a story for us for social media. And it was only after kind of visiting the school that they were able to say, okay, I see how this school's a little different here and how they're special. And now let me
Yeah.
kind of convey that.
Yeah. And there are two audiences here. Um, there is, I think what Lenny is saying works both for the parents, the people who are looking to come into the school or sort of move from the middle school to the high school. I would elevate that above my point, which is the results. I'm, the donor thing is the result thing. They all work. It's just we need to craft the right message for the right audience. And certainly the students and parents are one story, and they all rhyme. It's just, what do you elevate? What do you accentuate? And it's gonna be the same bullet points. It's just how do you explain it to people?
100%.
Absolutely. So I appreciate the input here. I think that's a part of the work of the committee to come back together and say what are ways that we continue to craft the message. But I couldn't see us doing the work without building some consensus and getting ideas from the team as well. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Misha. All right. I wanted to provide, in finishing up on the development meeting last week and where we're going, a couple of things coming down the pipeline in September and October. So we want to do a showcase at our middle school on the 30th of September. If members of the board are able to come, great. I will be inviting a couple of folks from the community in that same vein that we just discussed, of getting people understanding and appreciative of like the way in which the school feels and runs for kids and then those in the building. And so that's happening. Calendar invites for that will go out at 9, and all you I'm sorry, by Friday. And all you have to do, where are we? There is just respond to the calendar if you're able to make it. In addition to that, the development committee has been planning forward with a first smaller, modest reception to bring people who are interested in learning more about the school, meeting others who are involved in the school in various ways. And so imagine maybe 15 to 20 people in a space, 2 hours, some light food, some conversation, maybe some guided dialogue, just a meet and greet, so to speak. Um, and that happening on tentatively the 15th of October. We're confirming that now. Sal's been good about identifying a possible location, which is the Museum of Food and Drink. And I think that's in Brooklyn downtown. Is that right, Sal? And so tentatively we have that set for 6 to 8. It'd be great to have board members present, perhaps plus one. So I'll put forward the calendar invite for that once it's confirmed. Misha has volunteered to host or co-host here and there for that event, and so I'm excited for that. So thank you, both of you, for helping with this first one. We'd like to do a couple of these this year, and so this would be a first. In addition to that, I mentioned the ribbon cutting event, that likely being in early November. So I think as you step back, what you're hearing and seeing is that we're trying to advance our capacities in this area of school to bring more to our kids in resources, which provides some of the specialness and uniqueness of the school in realizing its mission. So those are the next couple of months with some invites to go out and perhaps some asks offline here and there of people in contributing to these efforts. With that, I'm going to move to the last committee report out for today, which is the governance committee agenda. For that meeting, we had Lenny and Davis and Jim there present. Just a quick report out. We talked a bit about just the purpose of this committee and what it is and what it isn't. So some good dialogue there with regard to responsibilities and then ways in which it contributes to the health of the school and of the board. We then dug deep into the calendar for governance, which is something we have an update each and every year. I'll talk about the next couple of months and what's on that calendar in a moment. And then we discussed the ins and outs of our 3-year strategic plan and some of the ways in which we convey that to external parties. Happy to say I've got a person who volunteered to help out with some of the ways in which we take that dialogue and have it live in this external facing document for interested parties to learn a bit more about the school and what we're seeking to do specifically. So that's happening offline now. With regard to the governance committee and the calendar, maybe it's more of an action plan than a calendar, but a couple of things happening. We've got a board self-assessment, which we do annually. We're going to report out kind of findings and analyze those findings next meeting. So we're going to hold off on that. There are some handbooks that are being modestly updated, but perhaps not materially in our employee handbook and student and family handbook now. So want to bring that to the board just so you have a sense of what is there and how it's similar or different moving forward. And then we talked about annual goals and benchmarks today. So that will be an approval item shortly. Our next meeting is in October and it's in person. So in our calendar, we typically have some sort of retreat in October. I don't have a specific kind of idea for what that training might look like or discussion might look like. Maybe it's an extension of the work we did today with Misha. So that would be promising. So we'll make some decisions there over the coming week or two around what that might be. And I mentioned already our school visits happening. We're going to do one at the middle school in early October, and then one at the high school in late October. So those will be in your calendar. So progress here. Thank you to the governance committee and the development committee for that work. With that, I'm going to move into approval items for tonight, and I'm going to go to the beginning of our agenda. I think that has it covered.
Do we have quorum?
We do tonight. Yes, we have quorum. We have 1, 2. I think we have 5 folks here right now. And so Jim, you'll see the first item is Lenny. We forgot we didn't forget, but we put off your reelection just to sort of confirm that you're here and wanted to honor your presence here tonight. You're up for renewal to another term here at the school, 3-year term. So
Okay.
Thank you for the work you've done over the past several years. You've been a friend of the school since we opened informally, and we're happy to have you fully as a member now. A quick note, I had a family member on Monday say that they know you well and say hello. And so I'll shoot you a text and let you know that it was in a moment. Anyway, I'll stop. Jim, this is an approval item for tonight.
Okay. All in favor of the re-election of Lenny? Show of hands.
Should I vote?
Absolutely. Come on. Okay, thank you. The next item is the minutes from the prior meeting from July 30. Any questions, comments on those? None. Okay, all in favor? With hands, thank you. The trailer agreement, Kristen, you want to take that?
Yep. So we are looking to renew the trailers for the school year and ending in mid-August next year, which is in line with the ending of our lot lease as well. So we'll make a decision for the next year after we get to that. So the combined total for all three trailers is $112,903.65, which is a 4.8% increase from last year.
Just one question, Josh, I should have asked this during the other meeting, but is there any news on the potential sale of that building?
No news that I'm aware of.
Okay. Okay. Any questions, comments? Seeing none. Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Josh, you want to take the next one, the alumni success counselors?
Yeah, so we have two since the beginning, since we first began graduating kids in 2020. We have had support extend to their initial years after graduation in college and career. These are two folks that have worked in the school as academic counselors. They've since moved on and are working. One works in higher ed at a SUNY institution. The other does some work for a nonprofit. But know our kids, know our alumni, know the work well and the field well, and so they commit a few hours a week to caseloads of students across the classes we've graduated, and are there to support proactively with deadline reminders, general outreach over the course of the month, help to troubleshoot when cases come up for some of our kids that may not have as much familiarity at home with regard to the ins and outs of college, particularly around the world of finance in college. These folks are really, really helpful. And so we want to continue with this service. We do pay these folks as consultants, and so it's slightly different than them being on staff. Quick note, we had a student from our second graduating class. She was our salutatorian. She graduated from Howard this past May and is looking for work. We were able to, coincidentally, we had a vacancy with regard to our operations team at the middle school, where this graduate was just a really good fit. And so within 24 hours, we're able to make a connection, have this person interview, and they're starting this week. So that's just one story about how these connections matter for both kids and our graduates and for our school. And so, Kristen, the numbers here are, can you fill folks in there? And then that's the rationale.
Yep. So the total would be 2,000 per month for a total of 24,000 for the year for each.
Hey, any questions, comments? Okay, all in favor? Okay, Josh.
And last item, we spent 5 or so minutes on this earlier, but this would be the strategic goals and targets for the year. This was discussed on Thursday, discussed again today. Juliana, thanks for the feedback on the formatting and order. I think it was a bit more smooth and digestible today. So uh, the idea is now to take this, deliver on it, and check in on it regularly, and have it be a part of just our monitoring and progress. Practices, both within the school and then within the board.
Josh, that's the one comment I had. I reviewed this. I think it's good. It's digestible, you know. The only thing that kind of jumps out, the very last you got things ranked 1, 2, 3. The last two, which are both threes, are the enrollment metrics. And I kind of get, the others you have more direct control over, but the enrollment is where the rubber hits the road. It's where you are, especially eighth graders moving in ninth. It's where you're showing to your customer, the kids. Well, the kids are saying, they're voting with their feet, basically, in or out, and sustain enrollment. So it's kind of tough. I was thinking about how to think about this because proficiency rates, et cetera, there's something you could do about that in the classroom, right? And this one, there are a lot of external there's a lot of external stuff going on that you don't necessarily have 100% control over. So I don't know that we need to change anything, but I just want to point out that these two things at the bottom and the three are fundamentally the end game, right? They are like you're doing the things that you rank 1 or 2 to get a good outcome at 3, to get kids recognizing this is a good
Yeah.
good school, and parents, this is a good school and we want to go there. Everything sort of feeds into the things that you have ranked 3. And again, I understand why they're there. There's very little that you can do in the classroom to do that. But those in a kind of in the corporate world, as it were, those would be your first two. Those are the number ones. Like, do we have customers, right? So, but I understand. I just want to point out that those need to be top of mind among everybody. That this is what we're driving toward, is making, creating an enterprise here that is really, really attractive to parents and kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking about what Lenny said earlier during Misha's portion of the meeting, where like what makes us special among the other options that parents and families can select within. And um, many of those things will be about academic preparedness toward desirable outcomes beyond high school. Some of them are just around engagement, how kids feel in school and feel belonged and supported and happy. And the same would go for families. And so I think a lot of the elements in these priorities respond to that and result in ultimately, if we're providing a really good experience for families and kids, a thriving enrollment.
Josh, I have a
Yeah.
question for you. My memory might be fading a little bit, but at one of our previous meetings, wasn't there a discussion, and if it's already in play, forgive me for not knowing it, where we were going to see if we can get testimonies from graduates and have the children themselves talk about what an experience at Unity Prep was like, and then also do a better job as part of our marketing package of the colleges that our children are going to, or even in some cases where college is not the fit, what they've done when they've graduated from Unity Prep. Have we done that?
We spotlight in the Scoop, I would say every 2 months, our weekly newsletter, an alumni, and it typically tells their story about what they experienced at Unity and then what they're doing now. And so that's one way. Um, We are also right now revamping our website. And so within our website, there will be stories of kids and what they're up to, as well as testimonials. So that will be there too. But I think even within some of the additional literature that we have to put out as we build our profile, there's room to grow in that area. Coincidentally, yesterday, Lenny, I was thinking about recruitment and our moves for the coming year and what we do. And my thought or an action I want for our team to take is looking at our feeder schools from this past year and creating a list of those schools of where kids came from in elementary school, and then getting out a student spotlight of their alumni who are now at our school, who are thriving and doing well, as a way of like, hey, just want you to know that your former student Roberto is doing amazing work in sixth grade. Here's something that he experienced recently, and you should be proud. And that being one way of us creating a testimonial, as well as expanding our network among the feeder schools in our neighborhood.
So I like that idea, but I guess in the context of what we discussed earlier, no, one size doesn't fit all. I think it's a great idea when you are able to go to a feeder school, have them post up in their cafeteria or in the hallway, hey, look what one of our alum has done, right? But
Yeah.
if we're talking about a population that doesn't know us, and you know nowadays that marketing is more actionable, right? So somebody's posting something on TikTok or Instagram, or even on our website, there is a testimonial where you can click and you can hear someone's story. People like information provided to them more than they do like reading information. So to the extent that we can do what you just did, and then maybe to add on to that, something that's a little bit more action driven, I think that would, let's see what that does. Let's say it that way. Let's
Yeah,
see what
yeah,
that
no, I
does.
agree. The interactive stuff is better than the print stuff these days, and that grabs the attention of most audiences
Right.
more powerful.
And I'm mindful that, certain marketing tools require a lot of maintenance. So I'm not looking to put an extra burden, but to the extent that we can, at least to start out quarterly, put up different testimonials and then let it be something that can be interactive and people can drill down on that on our website. Let's see what those results bring.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you there. Thank you for that.
Does the
No
Josh, just out of curiosity, does the I guess it's the weekly, is it a weekly newsletter they send out? Does that go to all the alumni?
Yeah, it does. Goes to
Okay.
about 5,000 people every week.
Oh
And
wow.
based on the data we have, about 1,200 people will open it up and review it, which, I don't know what the hit rate should be, but for 1,000 people to look at it each week, I think that's more than I originally thought would be the case before getting that data.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so this is an approval item.
Okay. So any other, and obviously these strategic goals, we should anticipate they will change as the playing field changes. But I think this is a good start for what it's worth. Okay, so all in favor? Any other questions, comments first? Okay, all in favor, show of hands. Thank you. All right, Josh.
Okay. I think back to you, Jim, on public comment.
No, I don't see anybody from the public here that I don't see.